Hi, this is the norming video for third grade writing for the constructed response on Common Assessment 1. My name is Monica Warren and I will be walking you through the constructed response question as well as the rubric that accompanies that question. If you first open up the page that comes along with the norming video, you will find the scholar's prompt that looks something like this, and their prompt was to write about a time when they were afraid. So what you should see when you start reading through responses is that the scholar actually tells a story. They tell a story about why they were afraid, what happened, how they overcame their fears, and how they calmed down, which were all part of the guiding questions here and below. So as we move through, you'll maybe see some planning pages, and then you'll find a final draft space that looks like this. Now, all of your scholars will have written on here. It is not super important that they stayed on just the final draft page or that they filled it up, but you do want to find their final piece of writing within their pages. I would recommend as you get started that you write the initials OIC at the top of the writing space for those constructed responses. And the reason I would recommend this is because these three initials align to the three parts to the writing rubric that's right down here below. The O stands for organization, which is also the progression of ideas. The I stands for ideas, so how engaging and interesting is the story that the scholar wrote. And the C stands for conventions, and that is basic things like grammar, spelling, punctuation, and then also word choice and how their sentences are structured. What I would recommend then is that you spend about 1 to 2 minutes very carefully reading over the scholar response, reading maybe one time to get the gist of what their story is about, and then reading a second time and annotating things you want to remember when you go to look at the rubric. It would be helpful if the first few scholar responses you grade with your grade level team or with somebody on your team at your campus, and then that way you can assure that you are reading and seeing the same things and answering the same, awarding the same number of points on the rubric as your partner that you're grading with. After the first few and you're normed, you can then grade on your own as long as you have the rubric, which is right down here. So this rubric, I've annotated it a little bit with some points to remember. This rubric is star aligned, but it takes it from what is a very intense star rubric that comes from TEA and breaks it down to just some key elements that are important for third graders to understand before they move on to fourth grade. For CA2 and CA3, you will actually find the full rubric when you begin grading those. But for now, we'll take a look and you'll see off to the left-hand side, organization, ideas, and then conventions, and then use of language as the last one. So after you read a scholar response a few times, take a look at organization. You're only looking at organization, so while things like spelling or capitalization may really stand out to you because maybe they're incorrect or they did a really awesome job at it, what you really want to focus on are just how is this organized, how is it organized into paragraphs, how is the beginning written, and try your best to ignore some of those other things that may be getting in the way of that. So you'll see on here, I've underlined a few things. If they're getting a level 1 is very, very beginning. It means that a scholar is not answering the prompt or not doing many of the things that good writers do. And on the other side, a level 4 should be very difficult to get. A level 4 writing would be your exemplary, maybe like best in class, like the most meaningful paper that you've read throughout the day. However, you may find that a scholar is really close, like really close in between two. So let's start looking at this first one for organization. You'll find that if the organization, really meaning like how are the paragraphs outlined, if it's really disjointed or hard to follow, like you're confused because of where the paragraph breaks happen maybe, or they just don't even have a beginning or an end. Maybe they talk about a time they were afraid and they don't even end it with how they resolved that issue. That would lack an ending and significant event, so it would be down at a level 1. A level 2 would mean that there's some organization that's attempted, but maybe it's very minimal, or maybe also it just, the writer has a very weak beginning or attempts a conclusion. I can most likely see a scholar getting a level 2 for organization if they write why they were afraid and they say, and then I woke up in the morning and it was all better. So maybe they have a very abbreviated conclusion that doesn't really explain the details of it or the events of how they resolve the issue. That would be at a level 2. A level 3 would be proficient. They have organization that's logical, that's in paragraphs, that's in time order, it's engaging to the reader, actually has a conclusion. That would be a basic level 3. In order to bump it up to a level 4, they would have to be logical in their sequence of events, and then in addition to that, they would also creatively engage the reader and has a very meaningful, good conclusion that really shows maybe how they learned a lesson or really shows the lasting impact of that event on them as people. So that would be organization and progression. Once you have a score for organization, let's suppose you're really considering, you're like, it was engaging, but there wasn't really a conclusion. TEA, when they are grading 4th grade writing responses, they'll always err on the lower side. So if you're in between two, always just knock it down to the lower level. So that would be at a level 2. What you'll want to do is then go up to your paper, and up here where you wrote OIC, right, whatever level it is that they got for organization right here, whether that's 2 or 3 or 4 or a 1. Then, coming back down to the rubric, you'll look next at the development of ideas. So this really is, does the scholar really have a central idea, one thing that they're afraid of that really scared them? Do they really develop the plot? And does the writer really convey the importance of that experience to the reader? So the first part, if they're getting a level 1, it means that they really don't ever tell you what it is they're scared of. So they don't address the prompt. And so this may be something where they say, like, maybe they get scared all the time and they write about lots of times that they've been scared, or maybe they just write about something completely different. That would be at a level 1. It also would lack details. To get a level 2, they have a central idea, but maybe it's very hard to pull out because it's not very clear when they introduce it. Or maybe it's very abbreviated. So maybe they only write 2 or 3 sentences. I was scared when this happened. It was really scary. I overcame my fear by jumping anyway. That would be that the ideas and plot are very minimal. There's not enough detail. So that would be at a level 2. To get a level 3, they'd have to have a clear central idea and a developed idea and plot. And so this is, again, just your proficient level 3. To get a level 4, they would have to do all of those things, but then in addition to that, they have particularly well-chosen details. And those details really tell the reader, this event was really important to me, and you really understand why. And as you can see here, it says that there is memorable insight, something that's lasting, that sticks with you, which is a sign of a really great idea to write about. Once you have your grade for ideas, you would again then go and write it at the top of the paper. And then the last part is the use of language and conventions. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is sometimes the area that really sticks out the most when you begin to read a paper that a scholar has written. For example, if they're misspelling a lot of words that are grade level appropriate that they should not be misspelling, that may stick out to you more than others. So often the use of language or conventions can be a little bit easier to grade because of that. The big thing to note on here is that it has to do with grammar and punctuation, as you can see this bullet point. But then on the next page, there are two more things. The first one is sentence structures, and the next one is word choice. And we'll talk about all three of those. So first you're going to determine how were they with their grammar, punctuation, spelling, capitalization, paragraphs, and I underline the things that would really help you here. Does it cause confusion? So are you really confused by what words mean because they are misspelled so poorly? Or were there 0 punctuation marks, 0 sentence boundaries, and one big long run-on sentence? That would cause major confusion. A level 2 would be, it would slow you down as a reader, but you could still kind of get it. A level 3 would be, these are generally pretty correct. And then a level 4 is that every way that they've used grammar and punctuation and spelling actually makes it easier to read. So very little mistakes. When we come down to sentence structure, this has to do with how sentences flow and if they're using a variety of sentence structures. So for example, if they have a lot of incomplete sentences, you would really be looking at a level 1 for that. If sentences are fragmented or they're run-on sentences or they say very simplistic sentences over again, such as my dog is scary, I don't like to be scared, and just very basic sentences, it would be at a level 2. To get a level 3, there'd have to be no run-ons and no fragments and a little bit of sentence structure variation. And then to really bump it up to that next level, they would really have to have a variety of different sentence lengths, structures, and complexity. This last part is about word choice. So this has to do with verbs. So instead of I ran away, what's a more vivid, descriptive way that the scholar could write that? So if they're using dull, repetitive words, so they're saying run, 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 walk, walk, walk over and over in every sentence, it would be at a level 1. Or if it's just confusing because the word choice is just inappropriate. A level 2, again, would be same thing with the repetitive words, but it just doesn't give you a good visual picture. So if you're scared, which is the prompt, and the scholar is just saying that they were scared, it really doesn't give you a good visual picture of how scared they were. So the big difference between a 3 and a 4 is that at a level 3, scholars will be really using concrete details that are very sensory aligned. So it was very hot, but how hot was it? They're really describing these things that they can see and feel and touch. And then if it's a level 4, though, those are very vivid and descriptive. They can still be concrete, but it really takes it to that next level to help you visualize the events. So this could look like metaphors, really strong adjectives or adverbs. And so for the use of language, since you have 3 bullet points in here, what you really want to do is see where are they typically. So they may have done really good with grammar, but maybe on the other 2 they're at a level 2. Since they're generally at a level 2, you would knock it down to a level 2. So underneath where you see this norming video, you will also find this rubric with my notes and some exemplar responses. Then underneath that, you'll find a discussion board. And in that discussion board, you can post any questions that you have about grading these constructed responses. This can be anywhere from having a question about how to read the rubric, or maybe you want another set of eyes to help you with one of your scholar responses. Go ahead and post any of your questions to that discussion board. And then the CTL and myself will be regularly checking that and answering your questions. Thank you.